Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating dynasties in Islamic history, the Abbasids. So, picture this, it's 750 CE, and a new dynasty rises to power, taking over most of the Islamic Empire. The Abbasids were an Arabic dynasty that initially ruled over almost the entire Islamic Empire, except for some western parts. They kicked off their reign by ousting the Umayyad dynasty, making them the second dynasty to hold the Caliphate from 602 to 1924 CE, with some interruptions along the way. Fast forward to the time of the Crusades, around 1195 to 1291 CE. By then, the Abbasid Empire was a shadow of its former self. The final blow came in 1258 CE when the Mongols destroyed Baghdad, ending the Abbasid rule. But even after their political power faded, they continued to hold spiritual authority as caliphs under the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. This arrangement lasted until 1517 CE, when the Ottoman Sultan Saladin conquered the Mamluks and claimed the title of caliph. This marked the end of Arab supremacy over Islam with the fall of the Abbasids. Now, let's rewind a bit to understand how the Abbasid dynasty came to be. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE, the institution of the Caliphate was born. Sunni Muslims regard the first four rulers as part of the Rashidun Caliphate, the rightly guided caliphs. However, Shia Muslims only recognize the fourth one, Ali, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, as their legitimate leader. After Ali was murdered in 661 CE, the Umayyad dynasty took over, ruling from 661 to 750 CE. They were effective rulers but struggled to manage the discontent among various factions, especially the Shias and Persians. By the end of their era, internal conflicts weakened their grip on the empire, setting the stage for rebellion. This brings us to the Abbasid Revolution. Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib, one of Muhammad's uncles, inspired a revolution led by his descendants. The Abbasids rallied support by promising to restore the caliphate to the al-Bayt, or the family of the Prophet. However, there was some ambiguity about who they meant by al-Bayt. Shia Muslims associated this term with Ali's family, while the Abbasids referred to themselves. The mastermind behind this revolution was a mysterious figure named Abu Muslim, who orchestrated the downfall of the Umayyads through brilliant political maneuvering. The final clash came in 750 CE near the Greater Zab River. The Abbasid forces, led by Abu Abbas, defeated the Umayyad army. The last Umayyad caliph, Marwan II, fled to Egypt but was eventually killed. Abu Abbas, known as the Bloodthirsty, was declared caliph in Kufa. The Shias soon realized that their support had been used to further the Abbasid cause rather than their own, and Abu Abbas as Safa securing his rule by defeating the Umayyads. After his victory at the Battle of Zab, as-Safa quickly moved his forces to Central Asia to stop the expansion of the Chinese Tang dynasty. In 751 CE, at the Battle of Talos, the Abbasids won a decisive victory. After this brief conflict, relations between the Abbasids and the Tang dynasty became more peaceful, marking a shift in the Abbasid strategy from expansion to consolidating and securing their existing territories. As-Safa took revenge on the Umayyads with brutal efficiency, sparing neither the living nor the dead. Umayyad graves in Syria were desecrated, and the surviving male members of the dynasty were massacred. Those who tried to hide were lured out with false promises of safety, only to be murdered in cold blood. However, one young Umayyad, Abd al-Rahman, escaped this slaughter and fled to Spain, where he established the Emirate of Córdoba in 756 CE. As-Safa's reign was short-lived, lasting only 4 years. His younger brother, Ja'far, known as al-Mansur, took over and ruled from 754 to 775 CE. Al-Mansur continued the tradition of adopting inspiring titles, and he became known as the Victorious. One major thing the Abbasids lacked was a capital of their own. Al-Mansur decided to establish a new capital near the Tigris River, and thus Baghdad was born. This new city quickly grew into a bustling metropolis, outshining all European cities of the time. However, al-Mansur's reign was also marked by severe cruelty. He targeted the descendants of Ali, suspecting them of plotting against him. He provoked them into rebellion and then crushed it with ruthless efficiency. Abu Muslim, the man who had played a crucial role in establishing the Abbasid Dynasty, also fell victim to al-Mansur's paranoia and was killed, his body discarded into the Tigris River. Despite his cruelty, al-Mansur was a strong diplomat and is often considered the true founder of the Abbasid dynasty. His inhumane actions, however, overshadowed his achievements, and many people began to feel sympathy for the Umayyads, whom they had previously viewed as tyrants. Al-Mansur was succeeded by his son, al-Mahdi, who ruled from 775 to 785 CE. Unlike his father, al-Mahdi was known for his magnanimity and piety. While he did not spare his enemies on the battlefield, he was generous to his people and took steps to reverse his father's wrongdoings against the Alids. He released their captives, compensated them for their losses, and even raised a former slave girl, al-Khazuran, to the status of queen. Al-Mahdi also dealt sternly with Byzantine incursions into Muslim territories. Although Arab-Byzantine relations started poorly, with the Byzantines killing a Muslim envoy sent by the Prophet Muhammad, the subsequent wars brought wealth and land to the Muslim rulers. By the time of the Abbasids, a status quo was firmly in place, but the Byzantines occasionally tried to expand their territory at the Abbasids' expense. Al-Mahdi sent his son, the future Harun al-Rashid, to confront Empress Irene's forces in 782 CE. After suffering significant setbacks, the Byzantines were forced to agree to a peaceful settlement. Unfortunately, al-Mahdi's reign ended abruptly when he was poisoned by one of his concubines. His elder son, al-Hadi, took over but ruled for only a year before his untimely death. Some say he contracted a fatal disease, while others believe his death was too convenient for many people, fueling speculation and debate. And now, let's move on to the golden age of the Abbasids, which reached its peak under the rule of Caliph Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid, who ruled from 786 to 809 CE, is perhaps the most legendary figure of the Abbasid dynasty. Even without the embellishments of folklore, his actual achievements were remarkable. Harun was a patron of the arts and learning, striving to make the Muslim world a leader in these fields. One of his most significant contributions was the establishment of the Grand Library of Baghdad, known as the Bayt al-Hikmah or House of Wisdom. Here, scholars translated classical Greek works into Arabic, laying the foundation for the Renaissance in Europe centuries later. This period marked the beginning of the golden age of learning in the Islamic world. While Harun was more interested in fostering knowledge and culture than in day-to-day governance, he ensured that the administration was in capable hands. His government made significant advances in administration and also proved its military prowess. In 806 CE, the Byzantine Emperor Nikephoros I broke the peace treaty and invaded the Muslim realm. Harun responded fiercely to an insulting letter from Nikephoros, taking personal command of his army and delivering a crushing defeat to the Byzantines. The resulting peace terms were even more humiliating for the Byzantines. During Harun's reign, a significant shift in the dynamics of power occurred. The western province of Ifriqiya was a rebellious and costly territory to control. Ibrahim ibn al-Glab, a prominent statesman, proposed a solution. He offered to govern the region as a principality, pledging loyalty to Harun and paying an annual tribute. This arrangement led to the rise of the Ughlabids, who ruled Ifriqiya from 800 to 909 CE. Unbeknownst to Harun, this agreement marked the beginning of the gradual disintegration of his empire. The real challenge for Harun came from within his own family. He had two prominent sons, al-Amin and al-Mamun, and he planned to divide the empire between them. Al-Amin was to be the caliph, while al-Mamun would rule his territories as a subject of the caliph. This plan, however, was doomed from the start. After Harun's death, a civil war erupted between his sons, plunging the empire into turmoil. This conflict, known as the Fourth Fitna or the Great Abbasid Civil War, lasted from 811 to 819 CE and caused widespread chaos. Initially, al-Amin had the upper hand, but his fortunes quickly changed. His brother's forces besieged Baghdad, and after a prolonged struggle, al-Amin surrendered. He was captured and treacherously killed by rogue Persian soldiers. Al-Mamun, genuinely grieved by his brother's death, adopted al-Amin's sons and punished the perpetrators of the murder. Al-Mamun then assumed control of the empire, ruling from 813 to 833 CE. Although the Golden Age of Islam reached its peak during his reign, it was also the beginning of its decline. Al-Mamun's love for arts and learning surpassed even that of his father, but his attempts to rationalize society, such as debating whether the Quran could be rewritten, alienated many of his subjects. This led to a loss of favor among Islamic historians, and his reign marked the beginning of the end of the Golden Age. Following Al-Mamun's death, the Abbasid Dynasty began a long period of decline. His immediate successors, Al-Mutasim and Al-Wathiq, failed to maintain the strength and stability of the empire. They allowed their private Turkish bodyguards to gain significant influence over the court. This shift in power dynamics reached a critical point when Al-Mutawakkil was assassinated in a coup orchestrated by these same Turkish guards. Al-Mutawakkil was notorious for his cruelty and has often been compared to Nero, the infamous Roman emperor. His assassination, however, marked a significant loss of control for the Abbasids. His son, Al-Muntasir, was placed on the throne as a puppet, completely under the control of the Turks. Sadly, Al-Muntasir's rule was short-lived, and he died soon after. In 909 CE, a new threat emerged with the rise of the Fatimids, a radical Shia caliphate. They defeated the Umayyads, who had been loyal to Baghdad, and began to expand their dominion. The Fatimids eventually took control of Egypt and even the Hejaz region, which includes the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. To add to the Abbasids' woes, in 929 CE, the Umayyad Emirate of Cordoba declared itself a caliphate. But the most humiliating blow came from another Shia faction, the Bumayyads. Ali ibn Baya founded this Iranian-based dynasty, and in 945 CE, they captured Baghdad, effectively controlling the Abbasid caliphs. This was a dark time for the Abbasid dynasty, as different regions declared independence, further fragmenting their once vast empire. The Abbasids were now mere puppets, with various factions pulling the strings. In another historical twist, the Central Asian steppes produced yet another group of invaders, the Seljuk Turks. They had recently converted to Sunni Islam and retained many of their pre-Islamic customs. In 1055 CE, Tughfurul Beg, a Seljuk leader, took Baghdad, ousting the Bumayyads. However, this only replaced one set of puppet masters with another. As the 11th century progressed, the Seljuks seemed unstoppable, but by the time the Crusades began in 1096 CE, they were no longer the formidable force they once were. The Abbasids, nominal leaders of the Muslim world, could do little more than watch as the Crusaders seized the Holy Land. The tide began to turn with the rise of Saladin, a Sunni revivalist leader. In 1169 CE, he emerged in Egypt, abolished the Fatimid Caliphate in 1171 CE, and brought former Fatimid lands under Abbasid suzerainty. Saladin dedicated his life to fighting the Crusaders, scoring a monumental victory at the Battle of Hattin in 1187 CE. Even after his death, the Crusaders never regained their former strength, and in 1291 CE, the Mamluk Sultanate expelled them from Acre, their last stronghold in the Holy Land. While the Abbasids were regaining some of their military and temporal authority behind the scenes, a significant figure in this effort was Caliph al-Rashid. He began raising a personal caliphal army and was succeeded by al-Muqtafi, who declared complete autonomy for the Abbasids. Although the Seljuks besieged Baghdad in 1157 CE, The city held firm, and the Turks were eventually forced to retreat. Al-Nasir is also notable for his administrative skills and efforts to extend Abbasid control beyond Baghdad. Historians consider him the last effective Abbasid ruler. But their newfound independence was soon threatened by another force from Central Asia, the Mongols. Led by Genghis Khan, the Mongols became a formidable power, and in 1258 CE, Hulagu Khan besieged Baghdad. The city was utterly destroyed, and its population massacred. The last formal caliph, al-Mustasim, was killed, marking the end of the Abbasid Caliphate as a significant power. Though the Mamluks of Egypt defeated the Mongols at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260 CE, and raised the lineage of Abbasid shadow caliphs in Cairo, these figures were merely symbolic. In 1517 CE, the Ottoman Sultan Selim conquered the Mamluk lands, and the caliphal title passed to his lineage. The Abbasid propaganda against the Umayyads was successful, but in the end they adopted similar administrative policies. The fragmentation of the Islamic Empire began with their rise, and their lack of interest in further expansion only hastened their decline. Many Abbasid rulers were not natural politicians, relying on others to control the state. Cracks that had appeared during al-Mamun's pro-Persian rule deepened, leading to the dynasty's ultimate servitude to other powers. Despite the efforts of later caliphs to revive the dynasty's strength, the sack of Baghdad was an inevitable end. Yet their legacy endures in the form of Sharia law and their patronage of arts, learning, and scientific inquiry.